Hello, and thank you for tuning into the Status Podcast, where Dana, Ty, and Zay encourage student athletes to take action to universally succeed. The Status Podcast is designed to achieve encompassment of the student athlete and their journeys while navigating multiple avenues. Our goal is to discuss, analyze, and create powerful ways that our student athletes can benefit from using their platform to grow holistically. The Status Podcast will feature topics that can open the eyes of student athletes to endless possibilities in sports and beyond. We, as former student athletes, are passionate about the student athlete experience and using our personal testimonies to repurpose the journey of the life, sports, and education. We plan to capitalize on opportunities to speak on topics regarding the wellness of student athletes, both physically and mentally. We will use our voices to empower and supply the world's athletes with tools to be successful during and after their student athlete experience. Be sure to follow our Instagram at status412_. So, to get into it, man, we can start off with DB. You can talk about, your student athlete experience at Kent. Just talk about everything from, being a student to being an athlete, how you were able to be successful, juggling the two.
Well, those of you who don't know me, I'm Dana Brown Jr. I'm a college graduate from Kent State, like Ty just said. I received a full scholarship. So 2009, I graduated high school, which started my college career. I played as a true freshman, started on a few packages on the defensive line. One thing that I wasn't aware of going into college was the balance you got to have, in your life. And one of the biggest things for me was, trying to balance that while being away from home, first time away. Me personally being a mama's boy, I'm away from my mom for the first time. So I had to deal with a lot of that. And I think one thing that a lot of athletes like myself get jammed up with their freshman year, being away, you want to party. This is your first time away. You want to go to parties. You know what I mean? It's always football is something we good at. We're there. So it just comes natural. But you don't really realize the work you got to put in. But freshman year, I kind of slipped a little bit, just not knowing. And I didn't quite get down to under a 2.0, but right at a 2.0. I got like a 2.06. And so from there, I got kind of influenced by the upperclassmen really to where they told me you only need a 2.0 to be eligible. So that was my goal, 2.0. You know what I mean? That's all anyone tell you. You need a 2.0, 2.0. So that's all I was shooting for. Once I got that 2.0, I ain't care about nothing else. But and then you get I got put in kind of like a major that I didn't want to be in, which was criminal justice. And it was criminal justice because you only need a 2.0 to maintain, in criminal justice. And I'd probably say 80% of the team was criminal justice or general studies, some down that line. But to move forward, after a freshman year, I adapted not so great, but better than I did in the coming years. And then by the time I start focusing more on what I wanted to do, life after sports, when I got done with football, is when I changed my major my junior year. So you figure you got 2 more years to graduate, and I'm changing my major. So I got put into, it's like an education, general broad education major, but I kept my criminal justice for my minor. Because I started to think what I wanted to do when football didn't work out. Because my plan the whole time was I'm going to the league. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And I realizing so much more goes into going to the league than just your play on the field.
Crazy.
So it just that was the eye opener. I started realizing my junior year. So that's when I really tried to hone in on a lot of things. I ended up jumping up, getting the dean's list my junior year until I graduated. End up graduating college with a 3.2, 3.19, something like that. So I jumped up good. So I shocked myself with that, honestly. And I never been one of them guys that was just like overachievers. I always was just enough. Except when it went to sports, that's all I cared about. But then as I moved on in my time, that's when I really like had the eye opener and really hone in that school is what's going to do this. Being the first in the family to graduate was something I had to achieve. I didn't have nobody to set the goals for me. You know what I mean, I had to be the standard in my family, my immediate family, I should say. And so carrying that burden on my back is just something I'm proud of. And realizing education is the key. I'm now starting back to my master's, which I never would have thought I can do. So it's just, learning
Crazy.
learn a lot of things through college. I would say more so just evolving as a man. I think it helped me on and off the field.
First of all, to go into play right off the bat, you know what I'm saying? You automatically in your mind are probably like, I got a good chance in going to the league. You know what I'm saying? Playing automatically off the bat, bro. Because I'm already telling boys, like, everybody I know is going to the league.
and that's how we felt. And
bro,
we saw out of reality that we didn't know everything it took. Like something that I remember 12th grade year, and I wasn't always the best student. I could be a jerk. You know how it was in school.
Man, we was cut up.
A teacher said to me, because I was getting on her nerves, and me, I had a name behind me in school. I mean, people knew who I was. So being a kid, she said to me, I won't say her name. She said to me, I can't wait for you to be freshman next year in college. I wish I was a fly on the wall so I could see you fail out.
Wow.
So that's
motivation.
That like something to this day, I'm 30 years old. That was said to me when I was 17. I still remember 13 years later. Like, and I see this person often. Well, I haven't seen her this year, but I see her often, and I don't even know if she remembers she said that to me.
That's crazy.
That's crazy because
you got to Kent. Whenever you got to Kent, and you were so used to being a man in high school for X amount of years. You're starting D tackle, you're getting all these offers. Can't nobody in high school block you. You get to Kent, and you're not the starting defensive lineman anymore. You know what I mean? You're on the depth chart, but you still got to work your way into that starting role. What was that mindset like?
Going in, leading up to camp, my recruiting coach, Coach Vance, great man, he called me and said,
Coach Vance, he told me to come by him. Sorry.
He basically said, we're looking forward to see you. You know what I mean? There's no rush for you to play. We're not, you know what I mean? We want to develop you, this and that. That phone call, I took as disrespect. Because me already in my confidence, I'm like, you ain't expecting me to play. Like, you know what I mean? What's this?
I'm not dude.
I'm not, you know what I mean? That's my mindset. And as an athlete, I think you need that mindset. So when I went up there, though, me and my roommate, he's a D tackle also. He was, I think, 4th on the depth chart. I was the 7th D tackle going into camp. The 7th. And this is coming from being all state, all conference, being the 7th. I'm like, ooh. So once camp got going, I know me personally, I'm a pass rusher. So one-on-ones, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to get your best line. I'm going to dog you. So I got shine. I brought out the spin move, brought out the hezzy shake. Did that. Who this guy?
Footwork.
They moved me up a few spots. The next couple of days in camp, I see other people start moving down. And these were like 3 or 4-star guys. Mm-hmm. They're moving down. So I'm like, oh, okay, I got their attention now. So when I go in a team, make a few plays, I slowly see myself moving up to where now I'm working in with the ones. You know what I mean? So it just having that confidence with me, I think kept me level and motivated me by seeing that 7th. I'm like, man, I've never been 7th in my life.
Yeah, that's
nothing I did. So seeing that was just like,
it's deep.
Respect, dog.
Literally a deep number.
That's what I'm saying.
Dang, man. That's the mentality you gotta have, man, whenever you go into college. A good thing for you that you was able to figure out the academic side of it, because a lot of boys don't figure it out, man, and they end up right back at the house.
Right, real shit.
Spread, man. So good thing you was able to figure that out, sooner rather than later, because your whole life could have changed, man. Like a lot of people.
No, all those. He said I wouldn't be here talking.
For real.
Listen, please, bro. I want to ask you one question. So, when did you realize that when you were at camp, and this is not, I don't want to just only talk about the sports. But when did you realize that you were better than some of the guys, people playing your position? Like how quick not just better, but did you realize like not I can get way better than every single player here at my position, be one of the best players on the team, all that. When did it click to you?
My confidence side will tell you when I signed my letter of intent.
Damn.
I mean, but on some realistic stuff
in person.
Yeah, I mean, and when I seen them in person, because I never, and a lot of us, we never been weight room guys. So going up there and seeing them dudes in the weight room, I'm seeing a guy that was a senior, Big Mustard. His nickname was. He was probably like 285 doing pull-ups. Just like, I'm just like, he's strong as I'm like, he's a beast. So me, in my mind, I'm always trying to learn from people by just watching them or in conversation. Yep. So seeing the way they move, I'm like, all right, he do that. His weakness is this, that. So having upperclassmen that were like dogs, me learning from them, picking their brains, and I start seeing like, all right, how can I add that to my game? And it was just like, within the matter of a few weeks after camp, it's just like, all right, man, I'm top 3.
I fit in here.
You know what I mean? Because I already felt like a lot of schools passed on me because me being undersized. So I always had that like chip, like anytime we played a bigger school, you know what I mean? I always had that chip. I remember when we played my sophomore year, we played Penn State, and Coach Bradley, he came up to me after the game and was like, you're a hell of a player. I never wanted to discredit you for that. You know what I mean? You could have played here type deal. Like
he knows.
And just like playing in all-star games with guys that kept my confidence up. Like they at like Big 33 game, I dominated, got captain there, whatnot. And all the guys like Penn State, Rutgers, Pitt, all that, they're like, yo, why are you
remember the Florida State O-lineman?
Yeah, I went up against the Florida State O-lineman, 6'8" guy, dogged him. So they asked me, like, why you going to Kent? Why you going to Kent? I'm like, Kent was my first offer, and they stuck with me through the whole thing, and I fell in love type deal.
Wow.
But Ty, you got a story yourself. I think that's like
powerful.
It's very powerful, very inspirational. You want to just go ahead and fill us in a little bit about your story?
Yeah, I'll jump into it, man. So I went to the University of Connecticut out of high school, played quarterback at McKeesport, and got recruited to play safety at UConn, which was crazy in itself because I didn't play one down in defense in high school. So to go to UConn, play safety was an adjustment, of its own. But and then growing up in McKeesport and then going to UConn, a PWI, predominantly white institution, I felt out of place as soon as I walked on campus because the two worlds were so different. But football was the thing that kept me grounded. I was able to, go to practice and understand that this was my happy place. I struggled in the classroom, my freshman year. My first semester I was up there, I got a 1.3 GPA. Second semester I was at a 1.9, barely eligible. I had to stay up there for a winter term because I needed to get my grades up so I could make sure that I'm eligible for the next season. But I redshirted my freshman year, got up there, I was 170 pounds, soaking wet. I'm walking around campus, I see boys with, shirts off, muscles all over the place, bucket hats, walking around with jugs of water. I'm like, what position this boy play? Like, oh, he plays safety. I'm like, dang, I play safety. See another boy up there about 215. I'm $170. I'm like, what position he play? Like safety. I'm like, dang, I play safety. I'm like, boy, I ain't never gonna play here. So I get up there, my freshman year, I redshirt. I learned the playbook. I put some weight on. I put 20 pounds on freshman year. And then I come back home, going into my redshirt freshman year and not knowing where I was going to be on the depth chart going into my redshirt freshman year. But I come home and I tell everybody, I said, yeah, I'm starting next year. The redshirt's coming off. I'm starting next year. And I wasn't on campus for the summer term because my grades weren't good enough. And they said if I failed any summer classes, I would be ineligible for the season. So they made me stay home going into my sophomore year, which is my redshirt freshman year. And I was at home grinding, telling everybody, I'm starting next year. I'm starting next year. So I get up to camp, redshirt freshman year, and I'm fourth on the depth chart. And I'm like, I told everybody back at home, I'm starting. I got to figure out how I'm going to make this happen. So I had a senior in front of me, I had a junior in front of me, a senior in front of me, and another freshman who came in the same class as me. And then it was me who was fourth on the depth chart. And, I battled my way through camp. I ended up, first game of the season, I ended up second on the depth chart. Got in a few packages, played on special teams. By the middle of my redshirt freshman season, I was a starting safety. Did a bunch of good things, got Big East, freshman of the year for the defensive side of the ball. Went up there, got, a gang of interceptions, a gang of tackles, and, played good ball freshman year. And then sophomore season came, I felt a little bit of that success on the field. So, whenever you feel that success, you're hungry for more. So I came home and I grinded, man. And, the spot was mine to lose. So I went up there in camp. I continued to battle. I had another good sophomore campaign. After my sophomore season, a bunch of agents calling me, writing me on Twitter, hey, you're projected a third round draft picks right now. You should think about coming out early if you have another good season, because, your stock is only going to continue to rise. So I'm like, that's all I needed to hear. I wasn't up there to go to school in the first place. I was up there to go play ball and go to the NFL. My junior year is whenever you need to declare a major. And the academic advisor, she asked me, she said, what do you want to major in? I'm like, well, what's your easiest major? She's like, sociology. I'm like, all right, well, sign me up. I'm going to go play in NFL anyway. So I go, I'm a sociology major, have no idea what I'm going to do with that, beyond sports. Junior year come, my mind's already made up. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to play this good season, and I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go play in the NFL. That's what I went there to do. So I'm going to accomplish that goal. So, junior year comes up. I'm having a decent start to my season. We're about 5 games in. I'm already registering 50 tackles. I'm going to get over 100 tackles this year for sure. But I didn't get an interception yet. I got a couple PBUs, no interception yet. So I'm like, I got to get an interception on the board. We go on the Louisville week. They're stacked. They got Devontae Parker, Teddy Bridgewater, a bunch of boys on that team that played in the NFL, and I think they were ranked in the top 10 in the country that year. So I was studying that, to the T. I'm like, this is going to be the game. It's going to be Friday night, ESPN. I'm going to get my first interception. I know if they got 3-by-1, 3 receivers to the field, and they got Devontae Parker to the boundary, Teddy Bridgewater is going to get the ball. He's going to look to the field, and he's going to throw a streak to Devontae Parker. I said, I'm going to go pick that off whenever I'm in the middle of the field. So, I already had it played in my head. I already knew what was coming. So we're going through practice that week. I'm excited to play Friday night, ESPN. Scouts are at practice. You're out there, you're feeling good. So we get into a Thursday practice. At most schools, you're not even hitting Thursday. You're in, spiders, or you're in helmets, and you rehearsing a game plan. Not us. We're in full pads. We're in uppers. We're not in full pads. We're in uppers. And we were in short yardage and goal line. And our fullback got the ball up the middle on the goal line. And, we met in a hole, and then we had a head-on collision. And then my body was numb. I got paralyzed for a few seconds, laying on the field. The ambulance had to come and get me off of the field. They took me off on the stretcher, took me to the hospital. And
Jesus,
I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, I can't feel my body. I get to the hospital. They're, telling me they're going to do all of these tests on me. I'm like, all right, cool. So, do these tests and let me, get out of here. Because by the time I got to the hospital, I got my feeling back. And I was like, all right, I'm going to be cool. So they do all of the tests. They let me go home. They read the test. The team doctor calls me in the next day. He's like, hey, this is what I want you to do. You've been diagnosed with spinal stenosis, which is a narrowing in the spine, and you don't have a bunch of fluid around your spine. And, it's not the flu is not enough to protect you for a contact sport. So he said, you got spinal stenosis and you have a bulging disc in your neck. So I need you to go home. I need you to figure out, talk to your parents and see if you want to continue playing football, and then come back after winter break and let us know your decision. So I said, cool. I go home, I get, different opinions from different doctors, and, a few guys say that they would clear me to play. So I said, all right, that's what we're going to do. So I went back to UConn and I said, I'm going to continue to play. And they were like, no, you're not. We're going to medically disqualify you here. You're not going to be able to continue playing ball at UConn. So I'm like, all right. We didn't have a coach at all at the time. So there was no head coach to, override the team doctor's rules or to fight for me to continue playing. So we get a new coach and he asked me, hey, do you want to be a team, like a student coach? I'm like, no, I want to play football. So he's like, well, I talked to the team doctors. There was already a decision that was made about your future. So I'm like, all right, well, give me my transfer papers. I'm going to go play somewhere else.
Wow.
So I got my transfer papers, and, Boston College was crazy enough to let me play. I called Coach Brown, who was my defensive coordinator, and he was at BC. And I said, hey, I want to come play for you. You're my man. We had a top 10 defense 2 years in a row with Coach Brown. So I'm going to BC to go, continue my college career. So I go to BC. I continue to rehab my neck. After I got my surgery that spring before my senior season. So going into camp, I was still rehabbing my neck. First few games, I got a couple reps here and there, and it was easing me back into the lineup. About the fourth or fifth game, I get into the starting role at Boston College, and I have a good season. I ended up getting north of 50 tackles on pretty much half the season, and had an interception, a bunch of PBUs, and I said, this is it. We're gonna go play in the NFL. And did my pro day, ran 4.5, bench 20 reps. So I had good numbers. I was comparable with the rest of the safeties who were coming out of that draft class. And I sat on my couch that year, 2015 drafts, and I watched all 32 teams pick for 7 rounds. I watched every single pick of the draft. First round go by, I'm like, all right, cool. I'm cool with that. Second round goes by, I'm like, all right, I'm cool with that. I'm post neck surgery. I'll, fourth, fifth round is whenever I'm going to expect to get a phone call. Third round go by, fourth round go by, fifth round go by. We're getting to the last round, and I'm like, what is going on? I'm watching all of these safeties get picked. I'm like, what is happening? Like there's no way that I didn't get a phone call yet. So, the draft's over. I call my agent. He's like, yeah, I talked to a few teams. I'm not going to bring you in because of your neck injury, but I'm going to continue to work. So I'm like, all right. So like 2 days later, I get a call from the Dolphins. And they're like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that we're about to go into a team meeting. I'm going to bring your name up and try to get you into camp. And we'll see what the medical staff is going to say. And, I'll give you a call back. So I'm like, all right. So he calls me back. In my mind, I'm going to Miami. We're about to go down there and we're going to make it happen.
Miami.
And, he gives me a call back. I'll never forget it. I was walking in Monroeville Mall. And he gives me a call back. He's like, hey, just wanted to let you know that we're not going to be able to bring you in for camp. So I'm like, all right. So the next day, my agent calls me. He's like, hey, you've been medically rejected by all 32 teams. They're not going to bring you in because of that red flag on your neck. Mainly because of, there was some miscommunication with the medical staff at UConn and the medical staff at the NFL.
At BC, the NFL.
The NFL, because a lot of the guys at UConn was saying that I was paralyzed for over an hour, which was inaccurate. It was a couple seconds. By the time I got in an ambulance, I was fine. But, the word was that I was paralyzed for over an hour. So, nobody brought me in. And then, at that point, I was like, now what? Right? I'm majoring in sociology. I had no idea, what I wanted to do. Coach Brown told me during one of the practices, he's like, hey, because we had a really good relationship. He's like, hey, after you play a bunch of years in NFL, I want you to come coach with me. So I said, say no more. That's an easy transition. So I didn't get a phone call from the NFL. My DB coach at UConn, he called me. He's like, "Hey, where you going?" I'm like, I didn't get a call." He's like, "Oh, something's not right." And I called Coach Brown. I'm like, "Hey, I didn't get a call, man." He's like, "You didn't get a call?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, let me make some phone calls and see what we can do." So I'm like, "All right." He made his phone calls, and obviously he got the same message that I got. And he brought me in, as a graduate assistant coach at Boston College, but I had no idea what I wanted to do beyond sports because I never thought about it. My whole thing was I'm going to go play in the NFL and that's going to be my career, and that's what we're going to do. So I get to BC, I GA, and I end up earning my master's, and I ended up figuring out that I want to make sure that there's no other student athletes who are going to be in this boat once the ball stops bouncing. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that student athletes are going to be prepared to, live their life beyond sports, because I was stuck. Once football ended, it ended so immediately, like
abruptly.
So abruptly, and I'm like, I was stuck, man, and that's a hard pill to swallow whenever you put all your eggs in one basket, and I had no idea what I wanted to do, and depression kicks in. You never even talk about it as a football player. You're so honed in on, you're so trained to not show emotion, right? So going through it, like, I didn't even talk about it to anybody. I'm just like trying to figure it out on my own because, as a football player, you don't show weakness. Like, that's just something it's an unwritten rule that you just don't show weakness as a football player. But not even as a football player, but even as like a black male. But not even a black male, but a black male coming from the type of neighborhood that we come from. Yep. You know what I mean? You don't really
shelter in your feelings.
You shelter in your feelings because you don't want to show the weakness. So I was just going through that, by myself. And but as I was going through it, I was meeting different people who seen so much more in me than I seen in myself. In terms of career beyond sports. So. Long story short, man, I was able to finish my graduate degree. I connected with a bunch of people through grad school. I connected with a bunch of people through networking, and I was able to get the opportunities that I was able to get, and go on to University of Michigan, work there, and work here at Boston College, which I'm doing now. But at the time, I had no idea, what I wanted to do beyond sports. But God had other plans, man.
Yeah, you're right. I gotta coming from that injury, you know what I mean? Because that's serious injury. And how did that play a role in your mindset going in? You know what I mean? When you got clear, you could play football again, BC. Like, I think that's a big issue that a lot of athletes had. Like, how did that affect you?
It was crazy because it was a day in camp. I was sitting in the training room eating breakfast, and I was watching on TV this guy that was playing running back for the Giants. He had the same exact injury that I had, and he retired from football. And it freaked me out. I went up to the coach's office. I said, "I'm done." I said, "I'm not playing anymore." He's like, "Whoa. Like, let's not make this decision. Like, let's figure it out." I said, "No, I just seen somebody on TV that had the same exact injury as me, and he retired." And then he was like, "Well, let's call your doctor. Let's figure this out." So we called the doctor, and he was like, the doctor said, I'm 100% sure that you can continue to play. He said, if I was 99%, I would not put you out. He said, but I'm 100% sure after this surgery that you'll be good to go. And then Coach Brown and that staff, they did a real good job easing me in, man. I barely practiced. I knew the playbook from playing for Coach Brown for so long. So
that's crazy.
I BC, I didn't have any contact during practice. They just let me loose on game day. And
what?
I got my first big hit against Pitt, and I hopped up and I was good, and that was all she wrote.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. That's all she wrote.
That's
if you felt normal.
I remember you might remember you called me. I want to sell you a year, but I think after the year you got jammed up with your grades and stuff. We was talking because Coach Ackerman recruited you and whatnot. And we was talking about you transferring to Kent.
Yeah, that's because I was going through a lot of stuff with the academic staff.
What was you doing?
The academic staff, like, you can't help me there, yo.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Is
And
your academic advisor
yo,
didn't want you there?
No,
What'd
they
you
ain't
say?
want me there.
Why not? Oh, you said. Remember, you told me that they were talking about how you was a bad apple.
Yeah, they thought I was like a bad influence on the team, but not knowing, I just didn't want to go to school. Like I never smoked before, I never drank before, but they labeled me as this person that I
It was just
wasn't.
hard to force yourself to go to class sometimes.
I just wasn't, a dedicated student. That's all that was. But they just
Yeah.
viewed me as something so much different. And I was like, I'm getting out of here, man.
I'm getting out of here.
I don't think you're the only one because we, as athletes, that's the easy way for us.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean. To where
I'm getting out of here.
it comes easy. I mean, it's just sports is what we want to do.
Yeah.
Schools
Right.
is like, all right, I can deal with it. But once we like learn, and especially you can attest to this. We know now. We knew back then.
Oh
Man.
my goodness.
Yeah, man.
What
And you can
a
say
wrap.
that about anything, man. But that's why young student athletes now need to latch on to people who've been there and done that. Because
Bro,
they're trying to give you the game, man. But it's so much harder whenever you have to make the mistakes on your own.
another thing is the respect, bro. Respect in the game.
Learn from other people's mistakes, so you don't have to go through it yourself.
I remember I used to coach Hart. All the maybe better get away from man. Up until even when I went to college, my freshman year, I didn't lift. I played right away, playing on natural ability. Sophomore, I'm starting now. Didn't play. I mean, didn't lift. It took till when we had a great strength coach that I started lifting my junior year, got into it, and then I see my numbers just go crazy. Then like going into my senior year is when I like really bought in double workouts all summer. I didn't come home at all, focused up. Man, I had a great me and Rosie. They labeled us that we was top 5 D tackle duos in the country.
Yeah, real for real.
And that was all Power 5 conferences. And so just putting in that work the off season and just seeing it pay off is just like, dang, that's crazy.
But if you would have listened,
bro, that work is
right. That's what I'm saying. If I would have listened from the beginning,
yeah,
you know what I mean. So
learn from other people's mistakes, man. You don't have to bump your head on the same wall.
Or you don't gotta. Yeah.
I wish I would have listened. You appreciate like that. Now looking back on things, like I always used to be like, I used to say I hated my dad the way he was on me. Like everybody know my dad, he was so tough on me. I used to hate it, but looking back,
I didn't even know.
Man, you know what I mean? For good and bad, he made me who I am today. Like
he knew.
So that those things you wish you would have really appreciated back then. And I think
go ahead, my fault, bro.
I think one thing that in Ty, playing at Division I level, you've seen also that a lot of athletes they don't want to put the work in. They just want the success. So I think one thing that I always quote, I love listening to his motivation. He motivated me crazy, Inky Johnson, when he said the process is more important than the product.
And when I say the process saved my life and the process is more important than the product, what I'm trying to tell them was when I was in the park with my mother when I was 7 years old and she was sitting in the Buick Regal, that saved my life.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and that's so powerful in its own. Like people don't realize that as a football player, let's say NFL, you got 17 games now. So we as fans, we only see those 17 games.
Sunday.
We don't see those other 200 plus days they put in the work.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's paying off. I think a lot of athletes forget that's what it takes. Those 17 games, that ain't nothing. It's those 200 some days before those 17 games that, you know what I mean, that you win. You know what I mean? Whether it's Friday night, Sunday night.
It's crazy you mentioned Inky Johnson because, man, whenever I first heard the story, I cried. Boy, I was like, I went through the same exact thing.
Inky Johnson, I'm about to look him up.
But he didn't, obviously I didn't have the nerve damage that he had that,
right.
Ended up paralyzing his arm. But I was listening to his story, man. I said, man, I went through the same exact thing that you just went through.
Powerful,
man.
Wow.
Good, man. So that was a good experience at a Division I school, man. Zay, can we get into
y'all can get to. I feel like this is like a spoof, a parody. It's like no, but all jokes aside, though, man, see, bro, the only reason I even went to school, man, to play football for real, was just not just I wanted to get my education first and foremost. Like DB said, just hearing that him talking about going to the league, I didn't feel like I was going to go to the NFL per se, but I felt like I don't know what in me. I guess the people I hung around like DB, like let's say cut like Cam Keys, you know what I mean? Or like this is like young age, just us all knowing each other. Like my cousin Trey Allen and Juan Button. This is the port specifically. Seeing Justin King, seeing Terrell Pryor in our area, you know what I mean? And big names that are number one prospects in the country that are athletes around. I just automatically wanted to go to college to play sports. But then I was like, man, I might not go D1. Yeah, I realized that after like my sophomore, junior year of high school. Now I had to really assess that in real life. I never got Smitty's sense of urgency thing. And like DB said about the teacher that said, I can't wait to see you fail out. I'm going to go to college. Because I'm going to keep it a beam, bro. Me personally, I had faith in y'all boys. You know what I mean? Period, point blank. I had faith in y'all boys, period. I still to this day about anything. You know what I mean? I just see it so vividly about how much work went into, you know what I mean, perfecting your name, your game. All that, like, that's not for everybody. So I understood where I stood in the program. You know what I mean? You got to know your role and work for a higher role. You know what I'm saying? So like when I started to realize that, I took that to college with me. Like I'm a freshman. Like I said, that's why I asked you, when did you realize you could fit in and get over? You know what I mean? And get to a point to where you can work your way up the depth chart. So like, boom, coming out of high school, bro, just being like, okay, I want to go to college. My first thing was I was going to go to an all-black school. I wanted to go to HBCU just because I wanted to get that culture. But one of the coaches from Marietta told me, you know what I mean, being recruited out of high school and shit, he's like, the world's not going to be all black. It ain't going to be all white. It ain't going to be all Chinese. None of that. He's like, it's going to be every ethnicity. They want you to prepare yourself for competition with every background. So I'm like, damn, that's legit. You know what I mean? He's like, Marietta, boom, they're top 100, 150 education or academic schools in the country. Forbes top 100 or something. So I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm feeling that. I like that, just the academic wise. I'm like, all right, I'll take it. Like DB said, I got through with the 2.7 GPA. You know what I mean? Or GPA, I got a 2.7, got through with that. And that was barely I got that. I bumped myself up my senior year. So basically, my SATs made up for all that. And this is just to tell the high school students, my SATs made up for a bad GPA. You know what I mean? My score made up for all that. So basically, I get to Marietta, like DB said, you get on campus, you know what I mean, after high school, because high school is done. Like you said, it's all state, all that, you know what I mean? Then you realize, boom, I'm a student athlete, a new student athlete at a new place. You know what I'm saying? All my accolades, all that, whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever you accomplish, people knowing you back home, whatever. So college-wise, I got there personally, and I'm like, okay, I majored in communications and everything. And I did that specifically because I knew I wanted to do sports broadcasting, or I wanted to do television or movies, entertainment, something like that. So, and I took communication for a reason. And I'm telling you this because it's for people that think that they want to do something. You really got to go all in. You do. You know what I mean?
You got to be committed to it.
You got to be so committed, bro. Like, I'm telling y'all this because in the midst of me being at school, I built a network. It's such a weird thing that happened, but I built a network in school from Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky. This is the benefits of being, and if I'd always think to myself, if I'd have been in school for 4 years, what the possibilities. I ended up going back to community college like CCAC here for a couple of years, and that has worked out for me too. You know what I mean? Leaving school at Marietta and coming back home, it kind of like fast forwarded me into having to be a man. And I'm gonna close on this, like as what DB was saying about having that plan and not knowing what you want to do. Most people don't before you get to college of, what's my plan? What's my time management going to look like? What's my routine going to be? Am I going to major in this? Am I going to major in that? Am I want to have a double major in minor, whatever? You got to keep in mind everything nowadays, especially of everything that you want out of, what you want to get out of school, what you want to get out of yourself from where you're going to be at. Is Ohio a good place for me? Is Connecticut, is Boston a good place for me? Is Marietta, you know what I mean? Study it. What's that city like? You know what I mean? What's that place like? Different things like that. You know what I'm saying? Study like all of it. You know what I mean? What is it going to be? What's it like, period, like we said? You know what I mean? What's my situation going to be whenever I get there? Am I going to be happy? Is it going to be advantageous for me? Just all that, bro. And sometimes you just can't worry. If you get an opportunity like DB did, like you said, and like you did, and like all three of us got. But what I'm saying is, when you get an opportunity to raise your level, you just got to take it. You know what I'm saying?
No, I think that's real big. I think for so many times, a lot of athletes they pick schools without really doing their research on them. They maybe pick school because the name, you know what I mean, without visiting, maybe. So I think that's a valid point. How you say, do your research. I think that's real big, for sure. And I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it on this. I'm gonna piggyback off what you said, man. Find out your why and why you're doing something. Incorporate denim. Seize the day. You know what I mean, don't let nobody tell you can't do nothing. Use that as motivation to show them that you can do it. You know what I mean? And if they are that fly on the wall, you know what I mean, show them.
Hey!
Cool, man. So we're gonna leave it at that. Tune into the next episode. We're gonna talk about the student athlete experience. What goes into, being a successful student athlete. Pretty much a day in the life of a student athlete, man. We can talk about, the high school student athlete to the college student athlete. So be sure to tune into that for the next episode. And deuces. We'll see you later, man.
Be good. Be great.